Welcome back to Empowered Voices, Recovery to
Yes.
Resiliency.
Woo woo.
I'm Dr. Farzad Kamyar, joined by my co host, Miss Amani Wilson.
Hello.
In today's episode, we're talking about financial recovery, an often overlooked but critical part of the healing journey.
Yes.
For many individuals navigating recovery, financial instability can be both a consequence of past challenges and a barrier to long term stability. Debt, damaged credit, and financial stress can feel overwhelming and at times deeply personal. But financial recovery is possible. Today, we'll explore how individuals can begin rebuilding their financial lives, understand their credit, and take meaningful steps towards stability without shame and with support.
Yes, I love it. And today we have two guests with us. First, we have Renee. She's joining us today. She is a fabulous, wonderful, beautiful queen out here doing her thing. She's one of our clients for Empowered, and she has she's truly thriving right now. She's over here. I miss you so much because we barely see you because you're always working, being a mama out here living life. And we're just so blessed to have you here on this show right now. So thank you for joining us.
Thank
And
you.
as well, joining us today from America First Credit Union, Jake Bingham. Jake is a driven and dependable professional with over 22 years of experience at America First Credit Union. Throughout his career, he has served as a loan officer, branch manager, and currently as the events planning and community outreach manager, helping individuals and communities build stronger financial futures. Known for his leadership, communication skills, and commitment to service, Jake brings energy, experience, and a people first approach to everything he does. We also have joining us with today. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
This all sounds so empowered-esque,
Yes,
right? Yeah. Thanks
yes.
for being here as well, Jake. We have Jake on remotely because Jake is in Utah right now.
Yes, yes.
Jake, do you want to share any thoughts on your intro?
Right?
Someone introduce you like that every day,
Yes,
every
positive
day.
messages.
Yeah. Okay, y'all. Thanks for being here. Cool. The time for me is gonna go by in a blur. This is a big.
Yes.
This is a big topic.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Financial stuff. Ooh, lo and behold, it's important for like a human that's living on this planet.
But you know what's
Actually,
crazy?
yeah.
They
Tell
don't
me.
teach it in school.
No.
It's not a course to take.
Offhand, we're trying to teach it at the medical school because
Okay.
it's an important part
Oh, that's
for
good. So we got to go
yeah
to
future
medical
future
school.
clinicians. Okay, but back on topic. Back on topic. Okay, look, this impact of like what can financial world look like for people's lives, right? And what I like about I think what we're going to end up talking about is for those that are watching and listening, you really this it's not like a lot of these principles have to do with recovery specific financial sort of advice or guidance. It applies across the board,
It
but we will
does.
definitely get into pieces that are sort of like recovery specific. And let's go. Let's go. Can you start us off, Jake? Can you start us off with what does sort of that financial instability piece, or let's call it debt, can be a part of that? How does that build, or how can that take a turn for the worse during periods of crisis or substance use for someone that's trying to obtain recovery?
Yeah. So first, I'll just start it out this way. It wasn't in my bio, but I just want to let everyone know. So I am 5.5 years in my recovery journey. Prescription pain pills, and it's been a journey. It's been great. So when I saw this topic, yeah, I thought, who better to speak to this? Like Amani said, I do manage our community outreach department here at the credit union. One of those areas is our financial literacy team, and so a big portion of that is just educating the community, as well as we go to schools and teach them about finances and just the basics of finance. Now, when you're going through addiction, when you're going through a crisis, bills and money, it's a difficult thing. You can easily charge up credit cards, charge up debt, because when you're going through that, you have one thing on your mind and one thing only. And so your money, the funds that you make, that you have, it's going to be going towards that. And so it's really easy to get off track and to kind of lose yourself in debt and charge up cards.
Do you mind sharing maybe if some of this happened in your recovery journey or while you were sort of actively using whatever that might look like? What were some of the challenges that you faced that in this world of we can have finances that are here versus maybe here? What were some of the stuff that led to
Well, so to be honest, like, I didn't really have any credit, like, when I was in my active addiction, so I didn't really have anything to mess up because I wasn't gonna get approved for a credit
Yeah.
card, right?
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
But, when I did move here, I'm originally from Utah, and gambling's illegal out there, so when I came here, that was where a lot of my struggle was. Because I mean, I was a performer on Fremont Street and making good money,
Making good
and
money.
immediately I would s go into a casino and lose it all,
Yep.
and, so I was homeless out here the whole time I was out here,
Despite making good money.
yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't even I didn't have it in my brain to be able to not walk in there and gamble everything away because I always thought I was gonna win something.
Sure, sure. Wow, yeah, so, this is basically, you can call it one of the criteria of, like, a use disorder, whether it's substance or, you start to get into the world of gambling,
Mhm.
AKA addiction, these kinds of things. This is it, and it can get people into trouble really quick, right?
Yes.
Effectively, whatever finances or money they have access to oftentimes can be gone, like,
Man,
really quickly.
I don't gamble, and I didn't gamble, and it's still a struggle keeping money in the pockets and, just if you don't know certain skills and certain things, and when that's not your main priority, it's a big struggle.
Yeah,
And
and
sometimes it's not a priority until it's too late.
until it's too late. And I wanna touch on something that Jake had mentioned. We've talked about this on this show before, sort of, one of the other criteria, sort of this, physiological changes that happen in your brain surrounding substance use. When folks have that use disorder and are physically dependent in numerous ways to a substance, when you look at hierarchy of needs, it goes up there with food, water, and air.
Mhm.
So to hopefully lower some of that stigma, how could you take every last dollar and spend it on using substances? Well, would you take
Easy.
every last dollar and ask someone for a tank of oxygen if you were underwater?
Heck yes.
You would. Yeah, you would. Or for food. Do you purchase food? Yeah.
Yes, but even in your addiction, sometimes that food isn't even a priority.
Absolutely.
It's
But
just
it's the
water and
equivalent
air.
of, right?
Mhm.
So that, yeah. So, okay. Now this is really cool, Renee. You had mentioned you didn't even have credit, yeah, to
Right.
mess up. But credit scores, there's this notion of credit scores and credit. Credit does, I mean, Jake, please speak to this, right? Sort of in the world of finance, it is a thing. It's fairly important, particularly if you want to sort of rebuild. Can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about credit scores? What the heck is that? What
Mhm.
goes into it? What are we talking about?
So credit scores with when it comes to your finances, it's really everything. Your credit score is made up. It's a score. It was created by two gentlemen. They started a company way back in like the 50s, but an actual score they put in place was in the late 80s, and it's a three-digit score. It ranges from 300 up to 850, and the score, it basically gives you a grade or a score, and it lets financial institutions, credit card companies know how risky you are. If they were to give you a loan, how much risk, you'd be. It is made up of your repayment history, so how well you make your payments on the loans that you have, as well as your capacity. So if you have a credit limit of, $500, are you always maxed out on that limit? If you are, even if you're making your payment on time, it can lower your credit score because you're maxed out on the available credit limit that you have. So it's basically it's a score made up of all of the loans that you have and your repayment history. You can also have collections that go to that score, and it'll bring down that score as well. So when you are applying for a loan, a company is going to pull that score and your interest rate, and if you even qualify for the loan, are going to be based off of and how good your score is.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Renee, you talked about not having had credit before. Do you have credit now?
I do have credit now.
Okay, what's been your experience with credit and credit scores?
Well, so I know it's important. I don't really know too much about it, but I know it's important, right? So I had gotten like a secured credit card and I started building my credit immediately as soon as I got into recovery. And so it's still pretty young. It's like 3.5 years old, but um I was able to qualify for an auto loan.
Yeah.
It's nice. I
Yeah.
mean, my interest rates are ridiculous.
Right.
Um
Right.
uh but it's
But it's and
Yes.
we'll
better.
get to sort of the secured credit, I think, in a bit, yeah. But rewind before we move on to something like that. I'm assuming that while you were in active use and experiencing this struggle with the money that was coming in and money that was going out, was that causing you any stress?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us how that was impacting your health, well-being, recovery, mental health, whatever?
Um, yeah, I mean, it was extremely stressful. I mean, I didn't really know anybody out here, so I mean, the fact that I kept like I knew the pattern, but for some reason couldn't break it. You know what I mean? And it was I was very malnourished by the time I got into recovery because I was putting drugs and gambling ahead of everything.
Sure.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, oftentimes we find this is a common question that comes up, right? How can basically financial stress or financial well-being impact health and recovery? And I say,
Mhm.
just like everything else
Yes.
can impact. Um, for I'm throwing air quotes up, right? For a normal person, this is highly air quoted, yes. How much does financial stress impact their health and well-being?
It's the same.
Yeah,
It's just the same.
exactly.
It hits everybody the same.
It hits
It's
everybody
not
the
biased. It
same.
doesn't
Yeah.
care if you're in recovery, you're not in recovery, you've never used, you know?
Right. It doesn't matter. And it's also when we look at Renee, sort of the chronic disease model, which is we treat mental health and addiction the same as we do diabetes and high blood pressure. Yeah. If you have diabetes and high blood pressure and you have financial stress and instability, guess what? You have worse outcomes for your
Yes,
chronic
you're
disease.
probably, yeah.
And lo and behold, if you're experiencing the same thing for substance use or mental health, you have worse outcomes.
And I kind of think that if you are stressed, like even with the diabetic example, if you are like maybe a stress eater, you're probably not going to make the best choices of what you're going to eat. It's
Of
probably going
course.
to cause your sugar levels to go up. I know when I was financially stressed in my addiction, I just wanted to get high even more.
Of
I mean,
course.
that's honestly what I wanted to do.
Of
So, I
course.
mean, like being stressed with your finances, I feel like if you don't get a grip of it, it just makes the problem that you're going through even worse and it causes other problems too.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at national polls, and right now it's a big deal, right? Affordability, people having money, not being able to live, those kinds of things.
I would like to know though, Jake, for someone who is fresh, because I know we all have our own stories, but like for someone who's fresh in recovery, what would you say the first step is just to even get a grasp on anything finances? Because I know you hear credit, get your credit together, but you need money to do that, or do you need money? You know, all these other things. But that's what I'm curious for somebody who's in recovery listening, and they're like, "Man, I hear all this, but I don't even know where to start."
Of course.
So I would say the first step is, and Renee kind of talked about how, she didn't even have an account, right? So I think the first thing you need to do is you need to get an account, whether it's at a bank or a credit union. Credit unions are great. There's my plug for credit unions. America First is awesome, but you know, getting an account is the first step. Having a place where you can put your money, not put it, in your top drawer, or it's with a financial institution, and then getting a debit card that you can use and make purchases at the store. I would say that's your first step. Now, in order to do that, you have to have money to do that. So, having income and then putting that money in an account, that's the very first step that you have to do before you can even think about building credit or getting a loan, getting a secured card, which is a great option that Renee mentioned. The secured card is awesome. But that first step, I would say getting an account, getting a checking account with a debit card.
Okay.
Jake, can you tell me this? What are the minimum requirements in order to actually open an account?
So, um, different banks are going to be different than credit unions. Specific to the credit union I work at, it's based off of where you live, work, worship, or attend school or volunteer. So, If you do that in a certain area, then you are able to join. Now, your credit will be pulled when you set up an account. You know, we have loan officers, we have account specialists that will work with you, and it might just be starting out with just a savings account in the beginning and then having a checking account after the fact once you get to that point. But it is fairly easy to qualify for an account. And, you know, having an account then gives you access to that financial institution and the services that that financial institution offers. The individuals that work at the branch or whatever, they can talk to you. They can be a trusted resource that you can go to. So, yeah, you need to have a valid ID and social security number, and then you can go and.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you for
Yes,
mentioning that.
it's a
Oftentimes,
great
and
question.
this is obviously one of the services that Empowered and programs like Empowered should offer is helping people secure those kinds of things, like a government issued
Yes,
ID, which we do, like we'll send peer
yes,
recovery sports services with folks
yes,
to the
and Social
DMVs.
Security.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Renee, did you experience it? What was your experience like in order to get something established?
Well, yeah, I was struggling with keeping an ID. And Empowered actually helped me with that.
There it
So,
is. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
They
big
helped
time,
me
right?
too, man.
And 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 this is so far removed from folks. Like I call myself lucky in so many infinite ways. Yeah. It didn't even fathom in my brain that I would be an adult without an ID. Because as soon as I could, I got an ID, right? I was like
Mhm,
16 or I don't know, work permit or something like that.
mhm.
Um, and so I hope that our like viewers and listeners can sort of take a step back and realize that there are real struggles in this world for
Mhm.
things that we take so for granted,
Yes.
and just having an ID be one of those. So
Mhm.
you were able to get one, and then how easy was it to get things going?
I mean, it was fairly easy. Like once I had all the documents and everything that I needed, it was fairly easy to go and open an account. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. We've mentioned this whole secured credit, right? This whole secured credit card thing a couple times. Who wants to take it? Renee, what's a secured credit card?
Basically, you pay a deposit, and spend the money that you basically already have, but it builds credit. You just keep paying it back
But
into.
it builds credit. Jake,
Yeah.
how important is it to get something like this going when you're trying to build a credit history?
Very important. It's a great way to start out when you don't qualify for larger loans and you're starting things out. Now, I will add, um, Renee's exactly right. You basically put the money up front. You have like $500 is the minimum limit that we offer on a secured card. So you have $500, you put it in a savings account. That money is secured. It is basically on hold, but then you get a credit limit based off of that amount. Now, there is a misconception with that where you have to then go out and use that credit card, charge it up, pay it down. You technically don't even need to. With it being open, as long as it's open and you don't miss a payment, you know, if it reports each month that the balance on it is zero, that's a good thing because it shows that you have a limit of 500 and you're not maxing it out. You're not charging it up. You're keeping it at zero, which that is a big misconception with credit cards is, oh, I need to charge it up. I need to.
Show that
That
spending
was
and that
my
payment.
conception. You just
Yeah.
taught me something now. I'm like, okay, let me not touch it. Just let it sit. Because I always feel like maybe I just have to go buy some gas with it and then pay it off immediately. That is a big misconception.
Okay, so I'm hearing, Jake, not necessarily activity on the card, but having it open, having that limit that's there, having on-time payments, things like that. Okay.
And not using it all up.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so
Yes.
If you did use it, a good rule of thumb is keep it below 10% of the limit. So if you have $1,000, you know, if you below 10%, so if you have $1,000 limit, you know, keep
$100. Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Jake, what are some other ways that folks can begin improving sort of their credit score other than the secured credit card?
So secure credit card would be the first, and then once you get that, over time, then you can look at other loans. Like Renee talked about, she qualified for an auto loan now. That's awesome. That's a big, huge step is to get that car loan, and then that's an installment loan with a set term. You're paying on that. When you start out, your interest rate might be a little bit higher, but the key is to just once you qualify for that, make sure you're making that payment on time. You're not letting it go past 30 days because the credit bureaus, they will, you know, every financial institution has to report your repayment history on the loan. And if you go past 30 days, then it'll ding your credit. It'll show up as a 30-day late, and you don't want that. So just make sure you pay everything on time, and don't don't get collections. Don't let your other bills go past due, whether it's utility bills, because if you owe money to those, they're not going to automatically report on your credit unless it goes to a collection agency. Then that could appear on your credit report, which would really hurt.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Can you give us any sort of what are maybe some common financial pitfalls that people experience for them to avoid?
Um, we've talked about like charging up credit cards. That's a big one. You get in that loop of maxing out a limit, and then you're having to pay the minimum balance on it, and that is a cycle where even though you have a credit score and you're using your limit, it's maxed out. But there are little things that can come up. Any little crisis, a medical visit, you might get injured. My son recently broke his hand snowboarding up at Brighton. We were talking about that before this started, and it's those things that pop up. And so getting to the point where you can save a little bit and set money aside, having a budget where you can set money aside for those emergencies, that is a big deal that will help you, because then you're not having to charge it up on a credit card.
Avoid charging it up on a
On the
credit
card.
card.
That's the key.
Okay, so Renee, you talked about your experience, which included a secured credit. Now we talk a little bit about auto stuff. Anything else? Anything else that maybe that aligns with what Jake just talked about or unique to yourself?
Well, I mean, to be honest, like it took me a long time to realize that I needed to kind of be responsible with my money. And it's been a trial and error process since. Like last year I struggled. I mean, I made my payments on time, but it was very stressful to make my all the payments I needed to on time. Sure. So I mean, I got my taxes and I paid everything for a year.
Yeah.
So,
Smart.
so and I do now. So now I have enough money in savings now that I can miss work for like a month and still be okay. But it's been a process.
It's been a process.
Last year was stressful. I
Stressful.
wasn't gonna repeat it
There's
this year.
there's that stress again.
Amen. I
Yeah.
feel
Okay.
that.
So it was stressful. What would you say is the biggest financial challenge you encountered?
Um, I mean, it's just gotta be juggling. I mean, so I was struggling with my employment, right? I was
Okay.
making very little money.
Okay.
But I mean, I stuck it through. I got my promotion and now I'm making decent money, whereas I wasn't before.
Awesome.
And that's probably, I mean, just the overall, just trying to bring in the income.
So the in part,
Mhm.
Yeah.
the
The
in part.
inflow.
Yeah, the inflow.
Mhm.
Jake,
And
what do you think?
congrats on the
Oh,
promo, queen.
yeah. Jake, what do you think? What do you see as like a common, like, hey, this is the big, so Renee's was the in, right? The money coming in. What are some of the things that you see that are huge obstacles or the biggest sort of obstacles or challenges that people face?
Um, I would just kind of echo what Renee said, but it's all those little surprise costs that come up. I kind of into doing a budget, and a budget is a great way where you can kind of outline. You have your income now, whether it's you're starting out and maybe you have a little bit less income, but then you get a promotion. So now you're doing a budget and you're showing how much money you have incoming, and then you break down all of your bills that you have, and then you can set aside other money for emergencies. So I think budgeting it out and having a plan to kind of overcome those life events that happen to all of us, that's a key to having a being able to manage that stress, because like we talked about, it is stressful. Finances can be stressful. Money is how we buy everything. It's how we put food on the table for the kids. And so yeah, having a plan in place is definitely.
Yeah, I'm gonna add a little sort of emotional twist to this is oftentimes we find that folks that are in this situation, one of their biggest challenges is things like stigma, so shame, embarrassment.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, look at what I
It's
did with money. Oh my
uh-huh.
gosh, look at where my financial state is. I'm experiencing housing insecurity. You know what I mean? The list
Mhm.
goes on and on. And one of the things that we look to sort of improve on is changing that mindset. Let's remove the shame, let's remove the stigma, building up that support network, trust again with yourself.
Mhm.
And it could be family members, it could be friends who've been financially sort of impacted as well from folks. Yeah, substance use. Was that at any part of yours, Renee? This sense of that internal negative state?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that on the way here. It was like, since I've been in recovery, I didn't realize how much confidence and self-trust I was lacking
Yes.
until I got to where I'm at today.
Yes.
I
Follow it.
love that.
Like on
Love
cue.
it.
You said the
Yes.
word confidence. What are some small wins that people can have or that they can engage in that will help build that confidence? Because it's huge. The confidence piece is huge.
Well, I mean, I think it just started out with the small wins, like, just being able to have the money to put into a secured account was a
Yes.
small win, and then qualifying for the auto loan, just doing the next right thing and seeing how it pays off, I think is the biggest thing.
Yes.
Jake, what would you say for someone that's looking for a small win?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head right there. There's that shame of, when you're in recovery, you're very familiar with shame, the feeling of self-doubt. And then, for all of us that are in recovery, I think recovery, we get to that point where we decide, we're gonna own up to what we did, we're gonna give ourselves grace, and we're gonna have that self-confidence. And once you get to that point where you can just be your best cheerleader and have that confidence in yourself, whether it's in recovery or financial recovery, it's the same thing. So, cheering yourself on, being excited for yourself when, hey, I got that account for the first time. Look at me, I have a debit card. Look at me now, I have a credit limit. I'm driving a car now that I'm paying the loan on. It's all those little victories that we have to make sure that we're cheering ourselves on, because we can all be our own worst and best critic. And yeah, make sure that when we give ourselves grace and make sure that we have that confidence in ourselves.
I love it. I ask for help is a big one for me,
Mhm.
right? Ask for help. In regards to sort of changing that mindset, what I wrote down was when we sort of going from this mindset of shame to sort of learning, I ruined my finances to I'm rebuilding my financial future one step at a time.
Amen.
Yeah. But along those lines, we're getting kind of close to the end here, so I want to close this out soon. Yeah, Jake. Where can individuals find trustworthy financial resources and support?
Um, it's it's simple. When you're in recovery, you have a sponsor, you have somebody that you can trust, that you can go to, which is a great resource. But all of us that have an account, you have a trusted resource, and it's right there. Your financial institution can be that trusted resource. We talked about all these steps of getting an account, getting a secured limit, and just going in and talking to, a free financial advisor, which we offer. That is a great trusted resource. There's somebody that's going to point you in the right direction and make sure that you're on track with where you need to be. Because, having an expert to tell you how to do it, that's
It's
Yes,
always
it's
better.
always
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
I have found also that some banks offer classes that you can do online. They're not really classes, but they're like mini videos and whatnot that teach you about the certain pathways that you want to take that are pretty awesome.
Yeah, so many cool resources,
Mhm.
right? But the
Mhm.
trustworthy ones
Yes.
are where I think we should, yeah, focus, right? Because there's a
Yes.
lot of stuff out there. I'm sure
Yes.
TikTok is full, or what? Sorry, I didn't mean to
I'm not.
but brand name there. These online platforms can have a
Mhm.
billion different, but
Mhm.
I would highly recommend hooking up with what we call experts, individuals
Yes.
like Jake at these
Yes.
mega institutions that hopefully take good care of people.
Yes.
Renee, to close us, ready? For our viewers and listeners that could be in a similar situation, what is I don't want to call it simple. What is a step they can take this week to get back on a path like you did?
Um, I don't know. I think it all starts with positive self-talk, right?
There it is. Positive self-talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
It starts in your brain and your capacity to be able to believe you can do it.
Love. Oh,
Yes.
that was so perfect. And
Mic drop.
I promise for everyone who's listening and watching, that was not written down. The desk in front of Renee is empty. Renee, thank you so much. Jake, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Amani, you want to close this out?
Well, thank you so much for, sorry about that. But thank you to Jake and Renee for joining us today on Empowered Voices Recovery to Resiliency. Rebuilding financial stability doesn't happen overnight, but with the right information, support, and small, consistent steps, it is absolutely achievable. Thank you for listening or watching this episode of Empowered Voices. Be sure to subscribe wherever you go. Get your podcast as another episode drops in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Appreciate you both.
Thank you.
If you live in Southern Nevada or in Weber or Davis County in Utah and you're pregnant or you've recently had a baby and are using opioids or stimulants for any reason, please know that you're not alone and you don't have to face it by yourself. Empowered provides compassionate, non-judgmental support at no cost. You don't need insurance and you don't need a referral to get started. Simply visit empoweredmoms.org to learn more and request support. If you live outside of those service areas, we encourage you to reach out to healthcare providers or community organizations in your area. Help is available, and taking that first step can make all the difference.